Welcome to Newshour. Tonight we shine a light on a growing global concern: Islamophobia. From violent attacks to legal discrimination, from Quran burnings in Europe to hijab bans in schools, what was once fringe rhetoric is fast becoming embedded in some institutions and politics. But amid the rising tide of hate, voices of unity are pushing back. In Azerbaijan, leaders, scholars and clerics have come together for a third year running, calling for international recognition of Islamophobia as a distinct form of discrimination. Their message: replace fear with dialogue, suspicion with solidarity. Well, as hate crosses borders, so too must our collective responsibility. Coming up, what's being done to confront this challenge and where the world stands now.
Islamophobia is not only a threat to Muslims, it is a threat to peace, coexistence, and the moral fabric of our shared humanity. Today, across many parts of the world, Islamophobia is on the rise. Hateful rhetoric, discriminatory laws, targeted violence, innocent lives disrupted, simply for their faith. In some societies, entire communities live under constant fear. Muslims are portrayed not as neighbors or fellow citizens, but as threats, as others. Children bullied in classrooms, mothers harassed for wearing a hijab, families profiled, detained, and silenced. This is not just ignorance, it is institutionalized bias, a global injustice. Yet amidst this crisis, there is hope. For 3 years, Azerbaijan has hosted international conferences dedicated to combating Islamophobia. As a nation built on coexistence, multiculturalism, and peace, Azerbaijan stands as a bridge between cultures, a voice for tolerance in a divided world. Bringing together scholars, religious leaders, and policymakers, these gatherings are more than events. They are movements for change. Azerbaijan's approach is clear. Promote respect, defend dignity, build societies where no one is feared for how they pray. Together, we stand against prejudice. Together, we amplify voices of wisdom, unity, and peace. It is very important that Islamophobia is recognized as a distinct form of discrimination by international organizations.
Promotion of intercultural and interreligious dialogue should be high on our agenda. We are concerned by rising Islamophobia and xenophobia, as well as attempts to equate Islam with violence and terror. Burning and desecration of the Holy Quran in Denmark, Netherlands, Sweden, and justifying it under the guise of the freedom of expression is totally irresponsible and inadmissible and must be condemned.
In Azerbaijan, we don't just talk about tolerance, we live it, and we invite the world to do the same.
Combating Islamophobia starts with confronting xenophobic narratives, which dehumanize and divide.
Through dialogue and action, we work to dismantle the barriers built by fear and misinformation.
Faith should never be a fault line. It should be a foundation for peace and common understanding.
When faiths stand by side in dialogue, they build bridges that no hatred can tear down.
Human fraternity means protecting every person's right, dignity, belief, and belonging.
تحقيق السلام داخل أي مجتمع يبدأ بتحقيق العدالة الاجتماعية.
We call on all societies to replace suspicion with solidarity and fear with fairness.
That European Muslims are part of our society and they should not be treated or mistreated according to double standards, but are integral part of citizenship and an added value as believers among other believers according to the spiritual and the cultural development of contemporary society.
Our shared mission is to build and strengthen peace and to create conditions that ensure the coexistence of peoples and religions.
Let this conference be a call to action. Let it echo across borders and generations. Islamophobia is incompatible with the values of human dignity and global peace. Islamophobia must not be normalized. It must be confronted, because silence is complicity. And humanity begins with understanding.
Now, earlier I discussed the role of media organisations in tackling anti-Muslim hate with Dr. Tarek Cherkaoui, Director of the TRT World Research Centre, and Mr. Jean-Michel Brun, journalist and filmmaker. Well, Tarek, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a fascinating discussion. I was there to watch it. Just give us your reflections, having chaired the panel, Islamophobia from a media professional's perspective. Give us your sense of what you heard and how great you think the challenge still is.
Well, I think the panel was stellar. There were people from different backgrounds dealing with AI, dealing with the media ecosystem. Some are related to government, some are from private sector. So the perspectives are rich and really informative. I think there is some consensus that Islamophobia has reached intolerable levels, and therefore the need for this kind of debates, the need for these discussions, the fact that we need to be also solution-oriented, not just problem-oriented, because by now we all know the problem and we just need to focus on the solutions. And I think many of our discussants did that. They unpacked some of their knowledge, they shared some of their insights, and I think this was really, really informative.
Excellent. And Jean-Michel, I know that we spoke just off camera before about how sometimes, particularly within news organisations, Islamophobia can be unconscious. People can believe they're being very moral whilst also enacting some of this prejudice type behaviour. You're an expert particularly on how that plays out in France. Just give us a sense of France as a case study, if you like, for some of this.
Sure. In fact, since 15 years, the French authorities changed the idea of secularism. In 1905, there was a fight between two people, Aristide Briand and Émile Combes. Aristide Briand thought that secularism was just the separation between church and state. And the idea was to let people believe in what they want to believe on. For Émile Combes, the idea was to push the religion away from the society. The 1905 law gave reason to Aristide Briand. It means that secularism was just you do what you want, you believe in what you want, just there is no connection with power and a religion. But now they changed and they say, okay, secularism is the ban of every religion and spirituality. And the media are spreading this idea. And French are convinced that this is the truth. And they think that religion, like Karl Marx said, is the opium of the people. And so what happened? They support a government that want to ban, for instance, the hijab from the school, from sport, from university, and now they want to ban it from outside, you know. And they think it's a good thing. But in reality, what happened is now France is ruled by the nostalgic of colonialism. And they dream of this French empire, which consider the Arab people as their slaves, you know. And now they can't say, okay, these people who were used to be ourselves are somebody we can learn something from, you know. But what happened is now in France, 1/5 of the French people are Muslims. And this is the big difference. And this is why they are fighting against Muslims. But what they ignore is that Muslims now are a little bit weak. But the community will get bigger and bigger and stronger and stronger. And this is why I said during the forum that for that, we don't need only speech. We don't need only talk. We need investment. We need investment on media, schools, books, documentary, exchange of students, and so on. If the Arab countries, the rich Arab countries, help the Muslim community to live really, things will change, and Islamophobia will disappear.
And I know that one of the things that was discussed on the panel too, Tarek, was how at TRT, where you are, at A News, many other channels, the news is shifting to online mechanisms. And of course, what comes with that is technology like AI. Just give us your sense, not just from what you heard on the panel, but for the own challenges you're wrestling with at TRT, of how you see the importance of using tools like AI actually to battle some of this anti-Muslim hate.
Well, AI can be really useful, and I'm sure in newsrooms it's very common to use some of these tools. The problem is sometimes you have to be extra careful because, as we know in the case of artificial machine learning, there is this rule, junk in, junk out. So whatever you are putting as part of the programming will result as part of the output of the machine. And in this case, unfortunately, whatever happened to the algorithm is that there is a lot of content that was siphoned out of the internet, and most of that was tainted with biases and with stereotypes and sometimes with prejudice and with hatred, and it becomes part of what the machine is learning and what the machine is processing. So there is this problem, but it doesn't mean that we should discard AI entirely. Actually, there are a lot of useful assets in this machine learning, and we are benefiting of it. All newsrooms are doing that, and actually it speed up the media business is a fast-paced business. It's 24/7. You need to be on top of stories. You need to give the audiences an instant response, an instant coverage. And you can do that just by discarding all these tools that are at our disposal. So I think now the approach is not to either or, but to do something like use it and as well start introducing different mechanisms to be able to teach that AI or introduce some more scrutiny into the program inside. And Jean-Michel Brun, by the way, has an excellent article that I read just maybe yesterday, and it was full of those insights on how to deal. I mean, he was detailing about France and Europe, and there were lots of nuggets to be taken from that.
Yes, indeed. And some of those recommendations, those practical recommendations, Jean-Michel, you outlined in your presentation. Can you just talk us through things that we can do as people that work in newsrooms, as media organisations, perhaps as just people who are members of our own societies in Europe, elsewhere, what we can practically do to tackle anti-Muslim hate?
Well, to answer this question, I will talk again about AI. AI takes its resources from internet, from the published book in PDF, and so on. The way to transform this, to transform the bias of AI, is to nourish this corpus of information. So the good way is to publish a lot, to make books, to make reports, written or filmed, and so on. But for instance, I created an online magazine, Muslim in France. I rule this magazine with my own means, my own money, you know. I'm not supported. We have a lot of people who can write, who can build schools, who can write books. But if the Muslim community don't support them, they will have no power. They need support from, of course, the other country which have a Muslim majority. We are a minority, so we need their support. It's the purpose of my speech in this forum.
And when you're fighting, when you're in that battle of narratives that you discussed so eloquently on the stage earlier, how do we resist the temptation to meet hyperbole with hyperbole? To, you know, in the face of exaggeration and misinformation, to possibly lose control of self-restraint and indulge in that ourselves?
I don't know. You mean the risk for us is to exaggerate, or?
Well, I think it's interesting that the idea that if one side is exaggerating and saying things that are not true, and we have to engage in a battle of narratives, surely it's tempting to exaggerate oneself in order to redress the balance. And if that happens, then what happens is you get further and further away from facts and truth, which sometimes tend to be quite moderate in their nature.
We are, for instance, I'm a journalist, so I'm focused on facts, only on facts. I don't make any propaganda, you know. So there is no risk. We just have to tell the truth. That's all. If you take the example of this country here, about the fight between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan have all the rights, you know. It is in line with international laws. You know. So they don't have to make propaganda. They just have to say what is the facts. But they don't. And for Muslims, it's exactly the same. Just say the truth. What is Islam? What are the real rules of Islam? Because the Islamophobic invent some Muslim rules, you know. They transform even the words. Like taqiyya or jihad or everything. So we have just to tell the truth, and that's all. So there is no risk. But we need to have the possibility to do it. Look, for instance, our community in France need to be educated, of course. And we used to have some Muslim schools, and they are closed one after the other by the government. Okay? Why they are closed? They are not closed. They just cut the grants. No school can live without grants in France. It's impossible. Except if they get grants from outside, you know? If I don't know, if Saudi Arabia or Qatar or Emirates help this school, this school can exist, even if there are some laws in France, but it is possible. So they need this kind of help, and now they don't have this help, unfortunately.
It's very interesting. And just finally, Tarek, turning to you, those of us who work in the news, in news channels, have, I guess, a particular responsibility in this regard. And I think one of those responsibilities, and we feel this at A News too, is to make sure that we balance views on both sides. I mean, very often people with the most extreme views are the noisiest, and that particularly can happen on social media. I know that's very important to you at TRT too, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think it's the main concern for most responsible news outlets out there, because the balance in the news coverage, having both sides of the arguments, trying to dig deep into the situations and uncovering the truth, as Jean-Michel said, is the objective of a newsroom. Unfortunately, in the digital space is different, because it's about clickbait. So the more clicks you have, the more followers you have, the more. So things get to the sensationalist side of news, and they start sometimes even inventing and adding, exaggerating, and that is contrary to the essence of journalism. And this is why a solid grounding in journalistic work and journalistic practices and teaching the ethics of journalism, at the very early levels of the practice of journalism is very important. And I think this is part of the introduction of any journalist to a newsroom, is also to know the editorial lines and understand how the ethics of the journalism works. And I think this used to be the case before. There used to be mentors who come and teach the new guys. I think we need to reinvigorate some of those old rules, in newsrooms. And I think all newsrooms are trying, but I think we have to try harder to establish ethical journalism and balanced reporting.
And that wraps up today's edition of NewsHour. As always, it's great to have your company. And from all of us here at A News, I'm Guy Shone. Good evening.